In the early 1600s, a small European settlement stood at the edge of the North American wilderness. It was a fragile experiment in a land that seemed endless, cold, and indifferent. Within a few short years, every inhabitant vanished. Only the empty structures remained, slowly sinking into the soil. The early 17th century was an age of cautious ambition for European powers in North America. Expeditions crossed the Atlantic in small wooden ships, driven by trade, faith, and the promise of new land. Maps were incomplete. Weather was unpredictable. The wilderness felt immeasurable. For every successful colony that survived, there were others that faltered and disappeared from record. Among them was a settlement established along a quiet stretch of riverbank far inland from the coast. The settlers who arrived here were neither soldiers nor aristocrats. They were farmers, carpenters, and families searching for stability. The land appeared fertile. Game was plentiful. The river provided fish, water, and a route for travel. Timber surrounded the site in tall stands. The decision to remain was made not out of boldness, but out of tired necessity. The Atlantic crossing had taken its toll. Supplies were already thin. Turning back was unthinkable. They constructed modest dwellings of timber and clay. A central meeting house rose first, followed by small fields cleared from the forest edge. Letters recorded hopes for orchards, trade routes, and a chapel built of stone. But news traveled slowly. Months could pass without word from the coast. The settlement was effectively alone, surrounded by trees that stretched far beyond the limits of anyone's understanding. The climate proved harsher than expected. Winters were long and heavy with snow. Tools rusted. Livestock weakened. Wooden structures warped and cracked. Their isolation grew more apparent with each season. Some settlers attempted contact with nearby indigenous groups, but fear and mistrust limited cooperation. Communication faltered. Misunderstandings multiplied. Disease also appeared. It moved silently between cabins, taking children first and then the elderly. Simple injuries became fatal without skilled care. A broken leg. An infected cut. A fever with no clear cause. Records from the settlement mention prayers, fasting, and nights filled with quiet dread. No ships arrived with relief. No caravans came from inland. The settlement was slowly being left behind, even as it struggled to hold on. By the middle of the decade, morale had shifted. Where once there had been careful optimism, there was an undercurrent of unease. The wilderness no longer seemed like an opportunity. It felt instead like a pressure, constant and unyielding. Trees encroached upon cleared fields. Wildlife moved closer to abandoned sheds. Footpaths disappeared beneath roots and moss. The settlement still stood. But the sense of permanence that had once defined it was beginning to fracture. As the years progressed, disputes grew within the settlement. Food shortages exposed different priorities. Some families wanted to move closer to the coast. Others argued that abandoning the fields would mean certain failure. Meetings stretched late into the night. Voices rose. There were no firm leaders, only neighbors trying to guide one another without the experience such decisions demanded. The isolation deepened. The settlers did not fully understand the land cycles. Floods came without warning, rising from the river and sweeping through storage huts. Grain became damp and unusable. Tools were washed away. The settlement had no proper mill. Everything was manual. Every failure meant exhaustion. Every delay threatened survival. Winter hunts became longer and riskier. Men returned days late, frostbitten and silent. Women and children waited in cabins where the fires never seemed warm enough. Wolves were heard at night. The darkness felt heavy. The settlers began keeping closer watch, though they were unsure whom or what they feared. Contact with indigenous groups fluctuated between fragile exchange and uneasy distance. Sometimes trade occurred quietly along the riverbanks. Other times, paths crossed without words. Neither side fully trusted the other, shaped by earlier encounters elsewhere along the continent. Fear lingered in the air, even during moments of peace. Religious tension also emerged. Some settlers interpreted the hardships as divine judgment. Others blamed poor planning. Sermons became stern. The meeting house filled with somber prayer. A sense of guilt took root. Not everyone agreed with the tone, and dissents slowly fractured the community's unity. Then came a sequence of events that pushed the settlement beyond recovery. A harsh winter struck earlier than expected. Stores were already low. Illness spread through cramped dwellings. Graves appeared at the forest's edge, simple wooden markers leaning in the snow. A late freeze damaged the following spring's crops. The river flooded again. The settlement had little left to spare. The settlers began discussing relocation in earnest. Some planned to head east toward the coast. Others spoke of moving further inland, hoping for richer soil. A few families simply disappeared one season, leaving only boarded doors and empty gardens behind. Rumors filled the silence. Had those families reached safety? Had they perished? No one knew. The sense of abandonment unsettled those who remained. Trust corroded. Fear replaced community life. Night fires burned lower. Voices grew quieter. The wilderness pressed closer, both physically and psychologically. Supplies dwindled to nearly nothing. Hunger reshaped daily life. Every decision carried risk. Stay, and starve slowly. Leave, and face the unknown. The settlement reached a breaking point. The final year of the settlement's existence began without ceremony. There were no official records. No declarations. Only a slow unraveling of daily routine. Houses stood, but inside them, belongings were being packed into rough bundles. The sound of carpentry ceased. Fields were barely tended. Smoke rose from fewer chimneys. Different groups left at different times. Some followed the river downstream. Others attempted to cross dense forest. A few remained behind, too ill or too weary to travel. No coordinated effort existed. The fragmentation sealed the settlement's fate. Once the first families departed, the rest lost what little stability remained. Travel was dangerous. The landscape was not mapped. A wrong turn meant days of wandering without water. Storms came suddenly. Clothing and footwear deteriorated. Children struggled to keep pace. There are later references to lone survivors being seen far from the original site, but none of these accounts were fully verified. The forest was vast. Paths vanished. So did people. Those who stayed behind faced their own slow decline. Without enough able-bodied workers, maintaining structures became impossible. Roofs sagged. Walls warped. Wildlife returned to abandoned spaces. Illness came again, and this time, there were no neighbors to offer help. The cabins grew silent. At some point, the meeting house door swung open in a storm and was never repaired. Wind passed through the empty space. Papers were scattered. A carved wooden cross fell from its mount and lay on the floor until rot consumed it. Nature reclaimed the site with quiet persistence. By the time explorers or traders later attempted to locate the settlement, little remained. Footpaths were overgrown. Cabins had collapsed inward. Wooden markers at the burial ground had fallen or vanished entirely. The river flowed as it always had, indifferent to human struggles. No clear evidence survived to tell exactly when the last settler died, or where the final families had gone. The story faded not through dramatic destruction, but through gradual disappearance. One absence followed another until there was nothing left to record. The settlement became a rumor. A note in a ledger. A missing shipment. A question without an answer. What once had been a fragile community in the wilderness simply ceased to exist. The settlement did not fall in a single moment. It ended slowly. Quietly. Almost gently. The fires went out first. Not all at once. One hearth. Then another. Smoke stopped rising above the treeline. The air cleared. And the sky looked empty again. Cabins began to sag. Beams loosened. Roofs let the rain through. Water pooled on floors. Then the wood softened. Rot followed. Time worked patiently. Footpaths once marked by footsteps faded back into the soil. Grass returned. Roots spread beneath old foundations. Moss crept over stones. The forest did not rush. It simply waited. Inside the meeting house, the door hung open. Wind moved through the empty room. Scraps of paper shifted across the floor. The benches gathered dust. The wooden cross lay fallen. No one came to lift it. The burial ground also changed. Markers tilted. Some fell. Some disappeared. The names carved into the wood blurred away. The earth settled. Seasons passed over it. Nothing disturbed the silence. Birds nested in abandoned rafters. Animals crossed the clearing without fear. They found no smoke. No sound. No people. The river kept flowing beside the empty site. It did not slow. It did not remember. It carried branches. Leaves. Silt. It erased the traces left along its banks. Years turned into decades. Maps changed. Routes shifted. The settlement slipped from records. A missing note. A forgotten name. A line in a ledger no one questioned anymore. Travelers sometimes heard rumors. A lost colony. A place swallowed by the land. Few searched for it. Those who did found little. A piece of timber. An impression in the ground. Nothing more. No final words survived. No final moment was recorded. There was no witness. Only weather. Only trees. Only distance. What had once been a fragile community became an empty space. A clearing without meaning. A memory without a voice. The wilderness closed in. It did what it always does. It took back what had been borrowed. Quietly. Completely. The people were gone. Their stories left with them. The land remained. Silent. Unmoved. And the settlement, once planned with hope, stood no longer. It was forgotten. Like it had never been there at all. Thank you for watching. New historical stories are published regularly.